You know what's beyond reason? Donald Trump. I'm just saying. It's beyond reason. And what's beyond reason, too, is I underestimated him from the beginning. I believe I underestimated Donald Trump. I did not expect him to do this well. Now, when he first made his speech, his original campaign speech announcing that he was running for president, I actually thought that he was going to do better than a lot of other people thought, because it was a speech that really I saw was going to attract a lot of people. But I didn't think he would be continually the front runner like he still is. As of right now, he's pretty much going to be the nominee for president for the Republican Party. He is winning. I mean, Ted Cruz seems to be gaining on him in Iowa, and I think there was a latest poll today that he was ahead of Trump in Iowa. So maybe Ted Cruz can get there, or Rubio. I saw another article that said the real contest is Ted Cruz versus Marco Rubio. And I see stuff like that, and I'm like, okay. But Donald Trump is still getting 36% of the Republican votes in the polls. So it seems like Donald Trump is going to be the nominee as of today. I don't want him to be the nominee because it's pretty much suicide for the party. He will lose to Hillary Clinton in general election. Hear me when I say this, America. He will lose against Hillary. I'm sorry. I said the same thing about Romney against Obama, and I will say the same thing about Trump against Hillary. But what's really beyond reason, and by the way, you are listening to Beyond Reason Radio. We do this show every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason, the voice of truth in a world that is beyond reason. We do this show every Monday and Fridays at 8 p.m. You can listen at beyondreasonradio.com or the Beyond Reason Radio app to listen to the show live. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the podcast later, you can listen on the website, iHeartRadio. We're now on Double Twist. That is another app that is pretty popular in the Android universe. So if you have the Double Twist app, just search in the podcast section for Beyond Reason Radio. You'll find that there as well. And I am joined by executive producer, Mr. Michael Formisano. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you about this Donald Trump thing because you seem like your reaction was interesting to me.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump came out today, and he said that we should ban all Muslims from entering this country until we, quote, figure out what's going on. Now, I don't exactly know what that means, because if you've listened to this show, I've told you what's going on multiple times. So what exactly does it mean to figure out what's going on?
I don't exactly understand what's going through his fluffy-haired little mind. I don't understand how he thinks that would work.
Well,
but
and let me tell you something. There are a lot of people. I'm not going to say the majority of American people. That's why I think Trump will lose. But there are a lot of people out there who will agree with Trump.
Oh, I'm very much aware there's people that will agree with that. But there's also people that agree that of a lot of things that aren't
that's true.
Good. You know?
That's true. Let's just hope it's not enough people will agree. Before I get more into that, I want to point out what the other Republicans said about it. Jeb Bush tweeted out, Donald Trump is unhinged. His policy proposals are not serious. Okay. Chris Christie said, this is the kind of thing that people say when they have no experience and don't know what they're talking about. Okay. Ted Cruz just said, this is not my policy. Lindsey Graham tweeted, every candidate for president needs to do the right thing and condemn Trump's comments. Ben Carson says everyone visiting our country should register and be monitored during their stay, as is done in many countries. We do not and would not advocate being selective on one's religion. So, and I believe Carly, now the Democrats are obviously totally against this. Martin O'Malley said, Trump removes all doubt he's running for president as a fascist demagogue. Which, that's going to resonate. that kind of comment's going to resonate with a lot of people on the other side. So that is where Donald Trump is. And I wanted to get Carly Fiorina actually said something pretty interesting about this as well. Where did that go? And I lost it, but I'll get to that later. But Donald Trump says we should ban all Muslims. Now, for one, Mike, and when you said that, your first comments were good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Why do you say that?
It's not like you can just say, okay, today is Monday, December 7th, and starting tomorrow morning, we are going to cut off all the Muslims. So TSA, airports, Border Patrol, good luck.
Now, and that's an interesting point. How would you exactly enforce that?
How would you enforce that?
What are you going to ask every person that comes in what their
what
religion is?
What happens if you're half Muslim? I'm sorry, only your American half is allowed to come in the country?
Well, and Islam is
a Christian.
It's not a heritage; it's a religion. It's a belief.
A religion, yeah.
So, how do you tell if someone is a believer?
Yeah.
You can't look at them and tell a lot of times.
With every religion, there's different levels of how into the religion you are, how much you practice, how you're going to be able to separate the radical Islams from people who just, read the Quran every now and then.
Exactly. And what this is I've said this about Trump before. It's populism. He just plays on different people's fears and anxieties at the time, and he reacts, and it's very overboard. Just like he said, thousands and thousands of Muslims were in the streets. They had proof that some thousands and thousands of Muslims were protesting the 9/11 attacks in New Jersey. Remember he said that, and we played that on this show. There was some, obviously. But thousands and thousands, this is the kind of thing.
Makes it sound like there's a stadium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now, this is what Carly Fiorina said, which I thought was interesting. Donald Trump always plays on everybody's worst instincts and fears, and saying we're not going to let a single Muslim into this country is a dangerous overreaction. It really is. How would you enforce that? Now, there are obviously some countries where we have to check who's coming in because they have a history of this kind of ideology that is spreading. But you know how many other countries have millions of Muslims that don't have this? You have Indonesia, which has the largest amount of the largest Muslim populations in Indonesia. You have countries like China has Muslims. India has Muslims. How are you going to stop this from happening? I understand the fears, and I've said we shouldn't even allow Syrian refugees. I've said other things. But to ban all Muslims, what's the next step? And this is the kind of thing. Remember I've talked about gun control. And I've talked about how the left in gun control has talked about, well, we have to do something for the sake of doing something. What Donald Trump is doing is the same kind of reaction. Well, we have to do something until we know what's going on. This happened in World War II when we interned a lot of Japanese Americans, which some people say was the right thing to do. I completely disagree with that. You know why? Because if we were really afraid of what they were going to do in our country, we would have also interned, put in concentration camps, German Americans and Italian Americans, because we were at war with them as well. But we didn't do that because you couldn't do that. There's no way that would have worked with the amount of that population. And it was completely unnecessary. Another thing I've talked about against the NSA spying because people think we have to do something. Rubio has come out today and said he wants to put in place the Patriot Act again, and he wants to put in place the NSA bulk collection of metadata again. No, I'm totally against that. What are we doing? You know, this kind of reminds me of a movie, believe it or not. I don't know if you ever saw this movie, Mike. This actually came out before the 9/11 attacks.
Really?
In the 90s. It was called The Siege and it had Denzel Washington in it.
That sounds very
familiar. It was about
the title sounds familiar.
It was about terrorist attacks. I believe it was New York, but it was about terrorist attacks, and a lot of them were small. It was a bomb in a FBI building. It was some other small type terrorist attacks, but they kept happening. So what happened is they declared a state of emergency in the city and martial law. They had the military come in, and what they started doing in the movie is they started rounding up all suspected Muslims in the city and putting them in stadiums, almost like a concentration camp.
I've seen this movie.
It's a good movie.
Bruce Willis was in it.
Yeah, and he played the military leader.
1998, that movie came out.
Right, before 9/11. And I remember I thought about that movie when 9/11 happened. Is that going to be our next step? This is what I mean when we're just like reacting to demagoguery.
I might vote for Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis came out and supported Trump, by the way.
Oh, I said Denzel. What'd you hear?
Yeah, but that's why I believe this is just completely dangerous.
I feel like I have to agree in the fact that he's trying to speak to the people that he knows would be like, yeah, we should be cutting off Muslims. Yeah, we should be stopping this, because there's so many people out there that just think these things are so easily, like you can flick a switch.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way.
Now, I also want to get into the other extreme, where we have Obama. He had a speech last night on the ISIS thing, but he's like the total opposite of Donald Trump, where he doesn't seem to want to do anything real. And and I had an op-ed that I'm going to read later in the show what talks about, Obama's just being reasonable and he's just doing what we need to do. It's like you have Trump who's saying we just need to ban all Muslims and we need to have databases and we need to do all this stuff, react. And then you have Obama who's like not doing anything. By the way, my biggest problem with Obama's speech last night on ISIS, and I'm going to play the audio here in a second, but it was the fact that he spent a lot of the time. I just feel like when Obama speaks lately, he doesn't talk to the American people. He talks at the American people. It's like he's lecturing. It's like he's our daddy and we're the American kids and we're in trouble and we need a lesson on what's right. He constantly lectures us on, and it talks down to us. I literally have a cut here that's like 3 minutes long of Obama lecturing the American people. Now, his first cut we're going to play here, I want to get into the speech. So we have Donald Trump in the opposite extreme. We need to ban all Muslims from coming in this country. I have no idea how you could possibly enforce that. And I'm telling you, listen to me. If he is our nominee, he will lose. I'm telling you. I'm saying this. I said this about Romney. Nobody believed me. And I was right, of course. And now we have the opposite extreme of Obama, who instead of directing his anger really at the terrorists, he's directing his anger at the American people. Now, this is what Obama said first, and this gets into the gun control thing. And he talks about what he said. And I want to play this first cut really quick before we get into the break. This is Obama from the speech last night on ISIS.
There are several steps that Congress should take right away. To begin with, Congress should act to make sure no one on a no-fly list is able to buy a gun. What could possibly be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon? This is a matter of national security. We also need to make it harder for people to buy powerful assault weapons, like the ones that were used in San Bernardino. But the fact is that our intelligence and law enforcement agencies, no matter how effective they are, cannot identify every would-be mass shooter, whether that individual is motivated by ISIL or some other hateful ideology. What we can do, and must do, is make it harder for them to kill.
So this is actually very interesting when I think about this. Obama and Trump are actually doing stuff that's very similar. Obama said there that we can't no matter how good our law enforcement agencies are, we can't find all these people ahead of time. So what's his take? Make it harder to buy guns. Gun control, banning guns. I mean, that's what he wants. He really wants to ban guns. So that's the reaction here. So we have to do something because our intelligence can't find everything. So what we should do is ban guns, ban all assault rifles. Trump. What we have to do, ban all Muslims from coming into this country. Obama. What we have to do is ban anyone from being able to get an assault rifle. Anyone. Because national security. Notice the similarities here? This is why I'm worried. The other thing, when it comes to people on the terrorist watch list, tell me, who determines who's on the terrorist watch list? The Obama administration. There is no due process. If you are on a terrorist watch list, there is no due process. So let's say, Mike, you were accidentally put on a terrorist, Formisano could sound similar to some other Muslim name, and you're accidentally put on a terrorist watch list.
Who told you about that?
And they accidentally put you on it.
Yeah.
And you decide you want to buy a gun because it's your right. And they say, nope, they passed this law, you're on a terrorist watch list. Sorry, you can't buy a gun. What can you do in that situation?
Well, here's my first question for you. How do you accidentally get put on a terrorist
It
watch?
happens.
Does it happen?
Oh, yes, it does.
Now, can you fight something like that?
You can try, but there's no...
Because I have to be completely honest with you.
All this is being done without the court of law, without any kind of due process, without any kind of checks. Really, it's just them determining it.
I have to be honest, though. If it were different, if it worked a little bit differently on how that happened, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world.
Well, and I'll tell you this. A lot of people, I have a feeling if anything gun control gets passed, this will be passed. My problem is, my biggest problem is this. If there are these so-called terrorist suspects out there on watch list, if they are true suspects, then they need to be arrested, charged, and convicted like anything else. If they're not, then they have the right. That's just my thing.
I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Like, anybody could be put on a watch list. If they're really terrorists, because we need to prevent terrorists from buying guns. Well, if they're really terrorists, they need to be arrested. So we're just watching them. And my biggest problem with the whole thing is it's basically the government making a list and determining. They can determine. By the way, it's not just jihadists who are on that list. You have Black Lives Matter people who are on that list. You have other groups of people who are on that list. It gives the president the power, once again, without any checks and balances, to just blanketly determine who gets a gun or not. And yes, there is a chance that it won't be abused now. But just like with the NSA bulk collection of data, it's once again giving that infrastructure for the potential of abuse. You have the Obama administration that spied on journalists through wiretaps and other things. That was proven. You had the Obama administration through the IRS target conservative groups. That's happened. So you want that same Obama administration to make up a list and then determine that everyone on that list cannot buy a gun just because they are on that list. My main point in this is he asked, what could possibly be the reason? Well, that's an argument, is what I'm saying. That's just a different argument. There's obviously a lot of people who probably disagree with me. If there was one part of gun control that will pass, it probably will be that. I told you why I don't. I'm going to play the next part in the next segment of Obama lecturing the American people. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and on the Beyond Reason Radio app.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening, there's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out DocStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Bud Hedinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app. That is if you are listening to the show live. Otherwise, you can check out the podcast like you just heard on iTunes. Now, in the last segment I talked about Donald Trump's Beyond Reason statement that we have to ban all Muslims coming into this country. There are going to be a lot of people that actually support that, even though I don't know how you could possibly do it. I just don't understand how, you know how many workers alone come into this country to work as engineers and techs and other things that are Muslims. You have families of Muslims that live here that come from other countries. You would have to ban all people coming from countries like India, Indonesia, China. I don't know how you would do that. And a lot of places in Europe, by the way, which have very big Muslim populations. And his statement was very interesting, like I said, because until we figure out what's going on, if you've listened to this show, you know what's going on. There is a radical ideology, mostly in the Middle East, that is spreading. It's a radical interpretation of the Quran and Islam. They are often connected to these groups. They are actually incredibly easy to profile in a lot of situations, but you, as Obama said in his speech, you can't find them all, which is why people like me support the Second Amendment, because the last line of defense is you. If a soft target terrorist attack hits you, you have to be able to defend yourself. And we're actually going to get more into the gun control thing in a sec, but the Obama administration, just like Donald Trump, does a lot of other things where they want to ban. He wants to ban all Muslims coming into this country. Obama reacts the same way. We need to ban. The problem to him, though, isn't the Muslims, it's the guns with Obama. So we need to ban all assault rifles. But Obama had a speech yesterday on ISIS. And what really bothered me, as I said this before, is it seems like Obama, for one, he just almost seems like he doesn't want to be there. The only time I ever see this guy passionate is when he's bashing Republicans. But the other thing is, does anyone else notice he talks at the American people? This is the 74th anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day, when Pearl Harbor was attacked by Japan. And even a Democrat president at that time used the opportunity. He didn't say, this is what we should not do. You know, he said, this is a day that shall live in infamy. We will go to absolute victory. This is how we will defeat Japan. He didn't say, now what we should not do is we should not do this. We should ban guns here. He didn't lecture the American people. He galvanized their support so we could fight the enemy. But Obama here spends 3-4 minutes talking at you, not to you, not wanting your support, not wanting to unite you, but talking at you and lecturing you about what you are doing wrong. Here's the cut. We're going to stop. We're going to go and stop because I'm going to have a lot to say on this. But this is where all this started, near the end of the speech. Obama last night.
We cannot turn against one another by letting this fight be defined as a war between America and Islam. That, too, is what groups like ISIL want.
Stop right there.
ISIL does not speak for Islam.
I don't know how many times I have to say this. I agree. We're not at war with Islam. There's 1 billion Muslims in this country. We can't be at war. Or not in this country, in the world. We can't be at war with Islam. Okay? Now, he probably is talking to Donald Trump because I guess Donald Trump is kind of going in that direction. But once again, he's lecturing you. He's saying, look, America, stop saying we're at war with Islam. We know, Obama. Stop, we know. He continues on here.
Islam. They are thugs and killers, part of a cult of death. And they account for a tiny fraction of more than 1 billion Muslims around the world.
Okay, stop right there. Now, I do disagree with this comment. By the way, there are some things that Obama said last night that I did like, and we'll get into some of that. But I do disagree with this by just saying that they're thugs and they're part of a cult of death. I mean, there's some truth to that, but it discounts the other side. It discounts what's influencing them. There is a radical ideology and interpretation, a religious interpretation that's influencing these people to do this. They're not just thugs who like death. They're not just serial killers. When you're just saying that, you're kind of discounting the radical ideology that's influencing them. It's not all of Islam, but there is a radical ideology we have to face. And it'll take good Muslims, like I said in the last show, it'll take good Muslims to call for that reform. Obama continues on here.
Millions of patriotic Muslim Americans who reject their hateful ideology. Moreover, the vast majority of terrorist victims around the world are Muslim. If we're to succeed in defeating terrorism, we must enlist Muslim communities as some of our strongest allies, rather than push them away through suspicion and hate.
Okay, stop right there. I agree. We do need good Muslims to help us stand against it. But we have to make sure, for one, they're good Muslims. And we have to make sure that they're the kind of Muslims that I played on Friday's show. Go back and listen to the podcast of Friday's show. That they're really denouncing the ideology. That they're not just CARE, the Council of America Islamic Reform. Dang it. Can you look up what the acronym CARE means, Mike, please? I should know this by now. Relations, that's what it is. Council of America Islamic Relations. Anyways, CARE, it has direct connections to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, which are terrorist groups. Hamas is a terrorist group, pretty much. So we have to stand with the good Muslims, yes, but we also have to be willing to denounce the bad ones. And that's where Obama has fallen short. And a lot of people in the country have fallen short. Obama continues on here.
That does not mean denying the fact that an extremist ideology has spread within some Muslim communities. There's a real problem that Muslims must confront without excuse. Muslim leaders here and around the globe have to continue working with us to decisively and unequivocally reject the hateful ideology that groups like ISIL and Al-Qaeda promote.
Okay, stop right there. That was one part of the speech I liked. I agree with that. I completely agree with that part of the speech. So all of you say I just want to hate Obama, there you go. A part of the speech that I liked. Continue on.
To speak out against not just acts of violence, but also those interpretations of Islam that are incompatible with the values of religious tolerance, mutual respect, and human dignity.
Okay, I agree. Good. Continue on, Mike. Sorry.
But just as it is the responsibility of Muslims around the world to root out misguided ideas that lead to radicalization, it is the responsibility of all Americans, of every faith, to reject discrimination. It is our responsibility to reject religious tests on who we admit into this country. It's our responsibility to reject proposals that Muslim Americans should somehow be treated differently. Because when we travel down that road, we lose. That kind of divisiveness, that betrayal of our values, plays into the hands of groups like ISIL.
Okay, stop right there. We're going to have to play the rest of this after the break, but I just want to say, notice what he's doing. He's talking down to you, the American people. We know we're not haters. We're not discriminators. The American people are the most tolerant people on the planet. And yet he's talking down to you. Who's creating the culture of divisiveness here? Obama's playing just as much of a part of it. He says he wants to unite us, but then he lectures you. We're going to get to more of Obama's comments. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio, live, beyondreasonradio.com.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill, specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening. There's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out Doc'sStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Buttheadinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio.
And how could you not like Beyond Reason Radio? Where else can you get everything in the news that is beyond reason and yet hear a voice of reason through it all? BeyondReasonRadio.com, of course. Make sure to like the Facebook page and then share it with your friends. What a concept. It's like I wanted to go viral or something. I thank you all for listening. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by executive producer Michael Formisano. We've been talking about a couple of things. First, we talked about Donald Trump and his comments banning all Muslims coming into this country. That's just what he does. He goes to extremes. That's what Trump does, and yet it works. He is still winning the Republican race right now. I've decided to no longer underestimate Donald Trump because he's winning. And even with these comments, he probably will continue to win. Doesn't mean I think he'll win the nomination, and I guarantee you he will not be president. But
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Just had to say that.
Well, on which part?
All of that. I think that he's winning, and if he does, I just don't see it going any further.
Yeah, and you know, the reason I say that, and some of it's anecdotal. For one, I don't think he can get the young vote.
I really agree with that.
I don't think he can get, I'm the voice of the millennial generation. You're a voice in the millennial generation as well. And talking to a lot of millennials, they're not fans.
He's nothing about anything he's done campaign-wise so far has reached that entire demographic.
Right. And you need that. You need
that's why Obama won.
Exactly. It's a big reason why Obama won.
Huge
You are
reason.
correct. So you're right. And I think that's going to be one of his biggest weaknesses. Even if he gets some of the black votes, which they're saying he will, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's done to really reach out to them. But I don't think he can get the millennial vote. I just don't see it. Most millennials know him from the reality TV show, The Apprentice. They see him as a comedic celebrity.
You're fired.
Yeah. They don't see him as a serious
That's what I think
presidential candidate.
That's what I think of when I hear his name
Exactly.
to this day.
Most people in our generation see him that way. A lot of older people, maybe from the 80s or so, might see him as that brilliant businessman. But I guarantee you the millennial generation does not. And they just don't take him seriously. And you're right. He has done nothing to really reach millennials. Millennials want to be reached because the economic conditions, the poor economic conditions under Obama that have lasted throughout his entire term have really hurt our generation. And Trump hasn't done anything. He can get the old white vote. He might be able to get some of the younger, well, not the younger, but I mean like middle-aged white vote.
Yeah. Like
But-
the 30s, you're saying?
No, I'm saying like 40s and 50s.
Like 40s.
I
would say
don't think he can get 30s. I don't.
I'd say 35 and up.
Right. And and I know a lot of older people who really, they don't take him seriously. They like some of the things they're saying. They like the strong reaction, but I don't think he can win. Now, what else we were talking about was Obama and his speech last night in ISIS. We played a lot about his lecture. That's what I call it, talking at the American people, lecturing them on how they've been bad and what they should not do. Don't you do that, America. I swear, it's like he's like disciplining us. It's ridiculous. At a time when he should be energizing us.
Dean Obama.
Yeah, exactly. Wants to put the dunce cap on America. All right, we're going to continue on here with what Obama had to say in his speech. Here he is.
Muslim Americans are our friends and our neighbors,
We know.
our co-workers, our
Yes.
sports heroes.
Our sports heroes?
And yes, they are our men and women in
That's
uniform
kind of a
who are
random
willing
comment.
to die in defense of our country. We have to remember that.
Okay.
My fellow
Yes, we
Americans,
know.
I am confident we will succeed in this mission because we are on the right side of history.
I agree with that.
We were founded upon a belief in human dignity,
Okay.
that no matter who you are or where you come from or what you look like or what religion you practice, you are equal in the eyes of God and equal in the eyes of the law.
Okay, stop that right there. For one, he doesn't believe that because he thinks some people should not be able to get guns. When he campaigned for, president in 2008, he called the people in the middle of the country bitter clingers, always clinging to their guns and their religion. He's often talked down to people of different areas. By the way, the IRS didn't believe that because they believed if you were part of a conservative group, you should be targeted. So when you talk about freedom and that we're all equal under the law, I don't know if you're really for that. Unless you're a conservative Republican. Then no, you need to be punished. All right, Obama continues on here.
Even in this political season, even as we properly debate what steps I and future presidents must take to keep our country safe, let's make sure we never forget what makes us exceptional.
First time I've
Let's
ever
not
heard him
forget
call
that
us
freedom
exceptional.
is more powerful than fear. That we have always met challenges, whether war or depression, natural disasters or terrorist attacks, by coming together around our common ideals as one nation and one people.
Under God.
So long as we stay true to that tradition,
You know you all
I
thought
have
that.
no doubt that America
Pledge of
will
Allegiance.
prevail. Thank you. God bless you. And may
You did
God
say
bless
God
the
there.
United
Good.
States of America.
All right, now, The reason I wanted to play the end part, I didn't disagree with a lot of that because it was fine. The one thing I wanted to play, that part, is I want to ask you. I've asked this question on the show before. What does freedom look like? He keeps saying we're a free country. Freedom will prevail. But what is freedom? This is where a lot of the debate is. Because freedom is messy. Freedom has risks. And we keep hearing from the president and others, frankly, how we need to give up some of our freedom, some of our liberty, for quote-unquote national security. Don't forget economic freedoms. I've talked about that many times on the show. Given up a lot of economic freedoms for quote-unquote the environment, quote-unquote the planet. But we're hearing lately we need to give up our freedoms from government searches and seizures, our liberty from spying from the NSA. We need to give up our freedom to defend ourselves, to buy a gun. So what is freedom? It's a nice thing to say. It's a nice platitude to say, but what does that mean? It's just something I want y'all to think about out there. Because any president can say, we need, freedom will prevail. But then why do I keep hearing that we need to give up our freedom for national security? What's the line? I don't think a lot of people are thinking about that when he says that, but it was just something that kind of crossed my mind there. So I decided to do something a little different today, Mike. I decided to read, no, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I looked at some articles from people that disagree with me.
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah, I got a New York Times editorial. A lot of people read it on how we need more gun control. There's some other things. I saw an article here from Slate that loved Obama's speech, said Obama's saying the right thing because, see, Obama is being reasonable. There's just no magic way to get rid of ISIS. Okay, I agree with that. But here's my problem with that kind of thinking. My biggest problem is right after the Paris attacks, what did France do? Almost the day after the Paris attacks. France bombed the crap out of ISIS in Syria and many different stronghold locations. Tell me something. Why weren't we doing that to begin with? Why did it take Paris being attacked for us to take... And it wasn't even us, it was France that did this. But they got the intelligence, a lot of it, from us. So we knew where they were, and yet we were not willing to do it. So we're hearing how Obama's doing everything he can. Well, obviously we're not. Now, I'll tell you, I don't think that's entirely Obama's fault. As I've said this before, I wonder if we're really serious about war in this country anymore. And I mean that. I often wonder if we're really willing to do what it takes anymore in this country to really win a war. I think the majority of American people probably are, but there's a large amount of people in our government, in our media, in our pop culture who are not. And the reason I say that, let me pull up this article. I found this from Slate.com. It said, it's by Fred Kaplan. He said, Obama offers honest words about hard truths. And he talks about everything Obama's doing and that basically what Obama's laid out, all we can do. But he started to criticize the Republican candidates for what they've said. He said in the past, Trump has also said he would bomb the blank out of ISIS. Ted Cruz one-upped him this weekend, telling a crowd, we will carpet bomb them into oblivion, adding, I don't know if sand can glow in the dark, but we're going to find out. Of course, now this writer is going to go to another extreme, which is not what Cruz was saying. Do these candidates know what they're saying? Is Cruz really threatening to drop nuclear bombs in the Syrian desert? I don't necessarily think that's what Cruz was saying there. Is it not as... He continues on here. It's not as if ISIS is camped outside of towns, away from populated cities, and is not as if the residents of those cities are all members of ISIS or at war with us. By comparison, Lindsey Graham, who advocates sending 20,000 ground troops to Iraq and Syria, seems moderate. But here's what I want to point out. We understand that ISIS hides out in civilian communities. But this is what I'm saying. This is the most politically incorrect thing to ever say. But in World War II, the fact is we bombed the S out of Dresden, out of Berlin, out of other cities in Germany. We did the same in Japan. Why? Because we were at war. Did we want to kill innocent civilians? No. It was not our objective. We wanted to win, and we wanted to win as fast as we possibly could so the war would end as fast as it possibly could, and then we could rebuild. I look at that, and I look at a country that was serious about defeating an enemy. I read comments like this, and I just don't think we're serious. We might have to bomb entire cities like we did in World War II in Syria and other places. I hate to tell you that. Nobody wants to hear that. But we might have to. And they're saying that will recruit more ISIS fighters or whatever. This is what I'm saying. We're not serious. I don't think we're serious about winning. We're not really serious about overwhelming force against the enemy to crush and defeat them.
I feel like nobody really knows what they really want. I feel like there's so much. It's all talk. It's all
that is an excellent point. I agree with that. It's all talk. And you're right. Nobody knows what we want. Now, part of it is because it's a different enemy. And it's hard to defeat a different kind of enemy. But I just don't think we're willing to do what it takes to crush the enemy. You talk to I've talked to vets who have been over there, quite a few. And they will tell you a lot of times that their hands are tied in really being able to defeat the enemy. Because of political correctness, because of the media, because of PR and so forth. And they're saying we could definitely crush them. But even in Iraq, we were there for so long, we had so many problems because we weren't willing to do anything. We just kind of, once we defeated Saddam's army, we just kind of stood around. And until we started going on offense against them again, that we had all those problems. Until we're serious about this, and I don't think Obama is, I don't know how we can defeat them. And that's what I got out of that article. That we're going to be at war forever with these people. And we're going to have these little skirmishes all over the place, and we're never going to be able to defeat this enemy. And what really worries me about that is because we're not willing to defeat them over there, they're going to constantly argue for us to give up more of our liberty here to keep us safe. They always say we need to defend the homeland. A lot of that is going to mean giving up your liberty. You watch. You watch. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill, specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening. There's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out DocStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Buttheadinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
So many places to hear the voice of reason. So many different podcast outlets to hear the voice of reason. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio with your voice of reason, with your host, Michael Yaffee, and I'm joined by executive producer Michael Formasano. I talked about in the last segment what some of the Republican candidates had said and the criticism they got because, Trump said we need to bomb the yes out of them. Cruz said we need to make the sand glow. And Mike actually had a problem with what Cruz said, so I'm very curious. Go ahead, Mike.
I just don't see who says things like that. When you're at a position where you're trying to be the leader of the country, you need to be. I don't know. I'm very much into saying things in the right context. Bombing a city isn't something you just do. It's very serious. It takes a lot of planning. And when you talk about stuff like that, I feel like you should say it so you're respected, so people actually take you seriously.
I can definitely see why you don't like Trump then, because that's all he says is stuff like that.
Exactly. It's just talking out of your butt when you say stuff like that. I don't respect someone when they're like, oh, we're going to see if the sand can glow. What is that? People are going to die.
That's true.
Talk like that.
That's true.
That's just my opinion.
Now, what was your take on Obama's tone when he did his speech?
Obama is kind of the opposite.
He's like that. You're right.
It's
He's
like
the direct
a polar
opposite.
because he'll say it more, serious, but lately it's just been talk.
And there's no urgency to anything.
There's no urgency. It's just talk.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reports out there that he was dragged into doing that speech because political reasons, because his poll numbers on this issue are very low. So he really didn't even want to make that speech. But we were talking a little bit about what you said, and I thought it was interesting because the article I was just reading from Slate that loved Obama, they were saying one problem with the Republican candidates is they're not coming up with enough solutions then. What would they do differently than Obama other than just saying we'll bomb the S out of them? And honestly, that's a good question. What would we do differently? Well, there are some things we can do differently. President Yaffee, I guess, will get up here. Don't worry, that's never going to happen, people. Some people want me to run for office. Was that even the right song?
I don't know.
It's
yeah, that's what I did.
It was?
Yeah. What'd you hear?
I don't know. I'm not sure what I heard then.
It's okay. You'll hear it when you're president.
Yeah. This is why I'll never be president. For one, the first thing I would do immediately is I would arm the Kurds in northern Iraq and parts of Syria, which is also known by them as Kurdistan. I would arm them immediately. I would support them more than anyone. We talk about we need to arm the Syrian rebels. We don't even know who is on our side over there. But we do know one side who's on our side, and that is the Kurds in northern Iraq. We need to arm them. We need to support them. We need stuff like that. The second thing is I would immediately send another aircraft carrier immediately to the Persian Gulf with more air support. And if anything, it would send a message that we are going to step up constant air attacks, and we would be bombing these locations, these specific locations where ISIS has strongholds, day and night. And I mean that, day and night. Places we can't bomb, I agree. We need a special force that can go in and release hostages and really take them out. I would double, if not triple that force immediately. Okay? The next step. Let's see. What is the next step? We've done drone strikes. A lot of people don't like the drone strikes. It helped a lot in Iraq. The next step that I would do, though, that I think is incredibly important, is I would take a tour. If I were president, I would get on Air Force One and I would visit a lot of Muslim countries. And I would call on them in their country, in a speech to their people, call on them to defend, to fight against this radical enemy. And then I would implore them. Basically, I would say, see, this is why I can't be president either. Apparently, I can't articulate. It has to be a good speech. But I would espouse freedom and American and Western values to all these countries. I would say directly what ISIS is doing, what this radical ideology teaches, and why it is wrong. I would espouse ideas of freedom of religion, rights for women, free markets, and I would go to these Muslim countries and I would do that. This is why I can never be president, because nobody's willing to do these things. No one wants to send more troops, more airstrikes, more aircraft carriers to the Middle East. No one wants to arm the Kurds even more. Nobody wants to do these things, but this is exactly what I would do. And I think really the most important part is to visit these countries, call on them for their support, but also go and espouse American ideals and say these are the values of the future. These are the values that can defeat this enemy. And we want you to join us in spreading these values even in your country. It'd be very hard to do, but somebody has to stand up for these values. Second off, I would, and this is the most politically incorrect thing ever, when I make a speech, I would galvanize the American people for their support. I also would encourage people who are thinking about joining the armed forces to do so. I would try to recruit more and more American citizens to join in defending their country. And I would say one of the most honorable things you can do is fight for your country. I would talk about, this never happens from a president anymore. I would talk about our armed forces, our military, they need you. And if you can't join the military, then at least support them. They need your support. If we are going to defeat this enemy, we're going to have to take it seriously, and it's going to be up to some American people making sacrifices for their country.
All hands on deck.
Exactly. Galvanizing the American people and saying, for once, talk about, supporting the military, and not just general supports of the military, but go to places, go to college and say, I want you to join the Army, the Marines, the Navy, because they need you. And with our overwhelming support, we can defeat this enemy. These things aren't said anymore. That's why I talk about over and over again. We're not taking this seriously. No president ever wants to say that, what I just said. No president ever wants to espouse American values in the Middle East. No president wants to do the things that have to be done, which is why people support Trump, because he's willing to say some things, but it's not what needs to be said. It's just reaction. And the idea of banning all Muslims from coming in this country, I think, is beyond reason. A lot of people disagree with me. Thank you all for listening to Beyond Reason Radio. Oh no, before we go, I meant to get out the Bible verse here. Oh no. This is not good. Please forgive me, Lord. Okay, here it is. It's from Philippians.
There's 4.
Time. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And the God of peace will be with you. See you all on Friday. Make sure to listen to the podcast if you missed any of the show, and we'll be live Friday at 8 p.m. Check you guys out then.